Millionaire CEO, took his twins on a blind date, pretended to be broke. Everything changed when Daniel Cross was a name whispered in boardrooms and splashed across magazine covers. At just 38, he was a self-made tech millionaire, CEO of a global software empire. More importantly, a single father to two mischievous, curious, and brilliant 6-year-old twins, Mason and Lily. But Daniel was tired of the masks people wore when they knew who he was. He wanted something real, for him, and for his kids. That's why, when his friend set him up on a blind date, Daniel did something bold. He introduced himself as Dan, a widowed construction worker, raising twins alone. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt. He drove a beat-up SUV, instead of one of his sleek black Teslas. He even brought Mason and Lily along, explaining, "Hope you don't mind I couldn't find a sitter." The woman waiting at the quiet cafe was Julia Lanin, art teacher, with paint under her nails, a tired smile, and eyes that had clearly seen both heartbreak and beauty. She didn't blink when she saw the kids. In fact, she knelt to their level, shook their hands like tiny grown-ups, and asked them what their favorite dinosaurs were. That's when everything began to change. Dinner wasn't about him, and like every other woman who'd fawned over Daniel's wealth or tried to angle for an invitation to his mansion. Julia asked about his kids, about their bedtime stories, about how he balanced work and parenting. When the twins spilled juice on her dress, she laughed and said, "Well, it's officially a great date now." And when Mason asked if she would come to their school's paint day next week, Julia smiled. "I'd love to, but only if your dad says it's okay." Daniel found himself staring not at her looks, but at her heart, the test that changed everything. After a few more outings, ice cream, park walks, even a chaotic visit to the zoo, Daniel made a decision. He invited her to his place, not the mansion. Not yet. But the small apartment he kept downtown, the one with creaky stairs and cracked tile, where he sometimes stayed when he wanted to feel grounded. Julia brought a lasagna, Mason brought slime, and Lily dragged her into a tea party. That night, as Julia read to the twins and tucked them in without being asked, Daniel realized he was falling, and fast. So he told her the truth. He took her out one night, not to a fancy restaurant, but to the top floor of a sleek glass building, his building. "I have something to tell you," he said, as they stepped into his office. All of this is mine." Julia blinked. "You work here? I own it." Silence. Then a laugh, not mocking, but soft, almost amused. "I wondered why your construction job gave you such soft hands." She wasn't angry. She was grateful Julia didn't storm out. She didn't accuse him of lying. Instead, she said something that made his heart stop. "Thank you for trusting me enough to show me the truth, and for letting me meet the real you before the headlines." He stared at her. "You're not upset I lied?" She shook her head. "You were protecting your kids and yourself. That takes more honesty than most people ever show." Happily ever after with paint, chaos, and love. 6 months later. Julia wasn't just in Daniel's life. She was in Mason and Lily's too. Their school art teacher, bedtime story queen, and the only adult who could handle slime in her hair. Without panicking, they got married in a garden surrounded by paint-splattered canvases made by the twins. Daniel wore a suit, Julia wore sneakers, and the twins, they walked down the aisle throwing dino-shaped confetti. Turns out, the millionaire CEO never needed a woman impressed by his wealth, just one who saw the mess, loved the kids, and stayed anyway. And when Julia whispered at the altar, "I fell in love with Dan first," he knew he'd finally found home. Daniel Cross sat in the back of his sleek black car, staring out the window as the skyline of the city flickered by. People knew him as a genius, a visionary, the millionaire tech CEO who revolutionized family education software. But to Mason and Lily, he was just daddy, snack provider, bad dash, joke dash teller. monster hunter at bedtime. After losing his wife for years ago, Daniel had poured himself into fatherhood and work, but the loneliness that lingered. Every date ended the same. Fake smiles, awkward questions, women trying to impress him or get close to his money. No one ever asked about Lily's ballet recitals, or how Mason refused to eat food that touched other food. So when his college friend offered to set him up with a sweet, down-to-earth woman, Daniel agreed with one twist. I'm going as Dan, the widowed construction worker. Julia Lane was tired. Third-grade art teacher by day, part-time muralist by night, and newly healing from a heartbreak that had left her weary. Her friend convinced her to go on a blind date, promising, he's not flashy, he's got twins, you'll like him. So, when she saw Dan rugged, flannel-shirted, with two shy kids peeking from behind his legs, her heart softened. And when he said, I hope it's okay, I brought them. No, sitter, she smiled and replied, only if they share their fries with me? Over grilled cheese and crayons on the kids' menu, Julia asked real questions. How do you juggle it all? What do they like to read? What's the worst mess they've ever made? Daniel watched her help Lily untangle a string. Cheese wrapper like she'd known her forever. She didn't bat an eye when Mason spilled soda. She laughed. No mention of money. No side glances at his car. Just a woman who treated his children like people, not props. 3 dates later, the twins invited Julia to paint day at their school. She's our friend, Lily announced. She makes slime cool, Mason added. Daniel watched as Julia kneeled next to them in her old jeans, helping them mix colors, telling Mason it was okay to hate the color orange. She got paint on her cheeks. She let them accidentally splatter her. She hugged them goodbye with glitter in her hair. That night, Daniel looked at her and whispered, You're incredible. Julia just shrugged. They're easy too. Love. He couldn't lie to her forever, so one evening, after dinner, he asked her to come with him. He took her hand and led her to his corporate tower. This is where I work, he said. She looked confused. Construction. No, he said. I run this place. I built this company. My name is Daniel Cross. Silence. I needed to know. If someone could love me, not my money, or the world's version of me. Julia looked at him, eyes soft but steady. You didn't lie. You protected your truth, and I respect that. Then she added with a teasing grin. Also, you're broke. Jeans. Designer, I noticed. A few days later, Mason handed him a crayon drawing. Julia, Lily, himself and Daniel, all holding hands under a giant rainbow with the words, Our family now. Even Lily whispered, Can she stay forever, Daddy? He had his answer. That night, Julia stayed for bedtime. Mason asked her to read the follow. Lily wanted to braid her hair. They clung to her like roots to earth. After the story, Julia tucked the blanket under Lily's chin and kissed her forehead. She did the same for Mason, who whispered sleepily, Don't go. She looked up and saw Daniel standing in the hallway, silent, tears in his eyes. You didn't just tuck them in, he said softly. You tucked me in too. They married on a hilltop surrounded by art and kids and laughter. The twins wore capes. Julia painted Daniel's tie with fingerprints. The night before, everyone cried. Daniel gave Julia a small box at the altar, not diamonds, but a handwritten letter from the twins. Thank you for painting our family whole. And that night, when they danced under fairy lights, Daniel whispered, You loved us before you knew who we were. That's why I'll never let you go.